New 3060 build! What's up guys, welcome back to another GigaGeek video, and today I'll be building another PC with the Ryzen 5 5600X and an RTX 3060. I had a lot of fun building this PC, and also check the email link in the description below. And without any further ado, let's begin. Alright, I just finished building the PC. It took me around 2 to 3 hours, but I think it came out pretty good. Now let's talk about some of the parts. Starting off with the CPU. This is the Ryzen 5 5600X. It's a 6-core and 12-thread chip. It's on the new Zen 3 architecture. It has a 3.7 GHz base and a 4.6 GHz max. Now let's move on to the CPU cooler. The Ryzen 5 does come with its own Wraith Stealth cooler, but it isn't very good. It doesn't keep the CPU that cool, so I chose the Vetru V5. It's a tower cooler, a 120mm tower cooler, and it's been highly praised by many tech YouTubers such as J2Sense and Hardware Connects. They made reviews on it. And I have to say, this is probably the easiest cooler I've installed besides the Wraith Stealth. All you do is you take out the mounting AMD brackets, you put on the AMD brackets onto the cooler, and you just screw it into the stock backplate. It's super easy. It also has a 120mm ARGB fan, which looks pretty cool. And the price point is only $35, which is really good for this quality of a cooler. Now, let's move on to the motherboard. This is the Asus TUF Gaming B550 Plus Wi-Fi. It has modest design and specs, nothing too crazy, but it'll fit nicely with the 5600X. It has Wi-Fi, and I also got it on a pretty good deal. Usually it goes for around $170, but I got this for $150. Now let's move on to the RAM I put in this motherboard. This RAM is the XPG Spectrix D50G. I used the XPG Spectrix D60G in a lot of other builds, like the 2060 build and the 3070 build that I did in December. It's really good RAM, and I got this for a pretty good deal. Usually this goes for $100, but I got this for $79. It's 16 gigabytes, it's clocked at 3200 megahertz, and it's at CL16. It's a pretty nice RAM, and it has RGB, which who doesn't like RGB? Now let's move on to the storage. This is the big step up from the last one that I chose. This is the Samsung 980. It's not the 980 Pro. The 980 Pro is Gen 4, but it's kind of overkill. You don't need that fast speeds unless you're like a video editor who needs to transfer files really quickly. But it's still extremely fast. Its read speed is up to 3,500 megabytes per second, and its write speed is up to 3,000 megabytes per second, which is going to be more than you're ever going to need. It's at 1 terabyte, which is good to store a lot of games. And in this case, you also have some hard drive cages, so if you want to chuck that in later, it'll handle that no problem. Now let's talk about the case. Now this is probably my favorite case I've worked with. This is the Antec DF700 Flux. It looks the best, and it was really easy to work in, surprisingly. And it's only at $79, which is a great deal for getting 3 ARGB fans, an ATX form factor, and this mesh front. And also, let's talk about the mesh front panel. There are 3 ARGB fans with this mesh on the front. It has these cool little curvy lines going through them. It's a nice touch, and it looks unique apart from the other normal mesh flat fronts you get on most cases. The back fan or the exhaust fan is normally not RGB, but I switched it out for an RGB fan because who doesn't like RGB? One unique thing about this case is that this case has a reverse fan, so it sucks in air from the back of the case and pulls it in up top to the GPU to cool it even better. Let's move on to the I/O now. We have 2 USB 3s, a microphone and a headphone jack, and an LED button, so when I press this, you can change the RGB to all sorts of stuff, and it also has a power button, obviously. Now let's talk about the thing that powers the entire system. The power supply is the Corsair CX650F RGB. It has RGB for some reason, I don't know why you can't see it, but again, RGB is the best. It's 650 watts, which will be more than enough to supply the entire system. You could even put a 3070 in here and have no problems. A 3080 you might have some difficulty with, but a 3070 is probably the sweet spot. It's 80 plus bronze certified, so it's pretty efficient. And yeah, there's not much to really talk about. Now let's talk about some of the cable extensions I used with this power supply. So the cable extensions I chose were these easy DIY sleeve cables. They're actually really high quality, and they're pretty cheap, around like $25, which is really good for these high quality cables. I would say they're even like cable mod quality cables, which is pretty good for at this price point. They're black and gray sleeves because the TUF aesthetic is black and gray and like gunmetal kind of sort of look, which kind of fits in with the rest of the build pretty nicely. Last but certainly not least is the GPU. This is the Asus TUF RTX 3060 TUF Gaming. It's one of my favorite GPUs I've worked with. First of all, it's a 3060. I mean, who can really get these? I had to wait in line at microcenter for like an hour or two just to get this card, which isn't too bad to be honest, but it's a pretty good card. Let's talk about it. First of all, it's a TUF card, which means it has really good power design, it has a good cooling solution, and it only has a little bit of RGB, but that's okay. I mean, I think the subtleness looks nice on this specific card. Some cards I think go a bit too much on the RGB and it looks kind of weird. Anyways, now let's go into the outro. I hope you guys enjoyed this build montage and parts explanation of this PC that I just built. I had a really fun time building it, and I think it came out pretty well. And also, I'm selling this PC, so make sure to check the eBay link in the description below. Make sure to like, comment, do all that stuff. Thank you for watching, and see you next time.